Able Archer 83. The Cold War never became a hot war. The United States and the Soviet Union never actually went to war with each other, instead engaging in proxy wars in Vietnam, Afghanistan, Eastern Europe, and many other locations. But it did nearly become a full nuclear war between the two superpowers on several occasions. Everyone is familiar with the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, when the world hovered on the brink of nuclear catastrophe over Russia's efforts to establish nuclear silos just a few hundred kilometers off the coast of Florida. But what is relatively unknown is that a full nuclear war was even more narrowly avoided in 1983. The Able Archer 83 incident occurred as a result of a NATO war game, the likes of which were carried out every year by the North Atlantic Treaty Organization in Central Europe. These command exercises were designed to train for a potential Russian invasion of Western Europe and were named Able Archer exercises. The war game of 1983 occurred during a particularly tense period of the Cold War, as Ronald Reagan sought to increase the pressure on a declining Soviet Russia. In particular, efforts by the U.S. to deploy Pershing II nuclear missiles in Europe and to initiate a new space race had sown massive unrest in Moscow. Unwittingly, the Able Archer exercise nearly accidentally resulted in a nuclear war. The Able Archer exercise of 1983 included some unique elements. The Americans and their European allies used new computer communications and radio signaling in their command exercise. It was these which created the confusion in November 1983, when the Able Archer exercise was being conducted by NATO. The Russian authorities, misinterpreting the communications they were intercepting, became convinced that the Western powers were actually about to launch a nuclear attack on Russia, though these signals were actually part of the drills NATO was undertaking. As a result, for 5 days between the 7th of November and the 11th of November 1983, the Russian authorities were prepared to launch their nuclear arsenal within minutes. Soviet air units were readied in East Germany and Poland, and nuclear warheads were loaded onto combat planes in preparation for the attack, which Moscow believed was imminent. Soviet forces in Germany were placed on a 30-minute alert. Incredibly, however, unlike in 1962, when the world had watched with held breath as events unfolded in the waters around Cuba, in 1983, the world was largely oblivious to what was occurring in Central and Eastern Europe. Most striking was that the Russian command was actually waiting in the Central Clinic Hospital in western Moscow, where the leader of the Soviet Union, Yuri Andropov, was receiving medical care for kidney failure. Their reason for being there was clear: to get the okay from him to launch the nuclear arsenal at a moment's notice. In the end, though, it was not needed. The Russians held off for long enough that the Able Archer exercise eventually ended and the paranoia about the Western attack subsided. But the world came possibly closer to a full nuclear war in 1983 than it did even in 1962.